the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. It is Tuesday, August 3rd in the year 2021. And no matter if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast or if you're watching us on YouTube or WKYC.com, I want to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes a part of your day. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at JStevens07. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter as well at Locked On Buckeye. Lined up for today, we will be joined by Mr. Cory Thompson from the Scarlet N Great Podcast the Scarlet N Great Empire. Go to YouTube, Ohio State Football with Scarlet N Great, as him and I will talk about the big news. Quinn Ewers, the number one recruit in the 2022 recruiting class, number one quarterback in the class, whatever you want to talk about it, he is number one in that class. He has reclassified. Will be at Ohio State preseason camp in about 10 days. He is skipping his senior year of high school, senior season of football in high school, because he has a possibility, and it sure looks like it's going to happen. He will make $1 million in endorsement money because NIL is not legal down there in the state of Texas for high school athletes, but it is for college, and he is committed, 100% committed, to be a Buckeye. I am going to back away. This is such big news. No upfront talk, not too much from me. Going to bring in Mr. Cory Thompson as him and I talk about the big news going into preseason camp. And joining us now here on Locked On Buckeyes, it is a gentleman that's been here numerous times. I'm going to try to get him on a few times during the season. It is Cory Thompson from the Scarlet N Great Empire, Scarlet N Great Podcast. Been hosting that for a long time with him and his co-host, Johnny. Cory, how you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me, man. Hope to see you well, man.
Yeah, I'm happy you're here, doing well. Busy week and big news coming on a Monday afternoon. Monday morning, maybe. I was at Colts training camp trying to look and see how Tyquan Lewis and Paris Campbell are doing. Look like they're both healthy. They didn't see any injuries. Colts defense looked good, but Tyquan Lewis and Paris Campbell looked good at Colts training camp. I am at Chipotle, Cory, with my mom. My mom wanted to go to the training camp. I said, sure, come with me. So we're at Chipotle standing in line. And all of a sudden, my phone starts blowing up. And it's like, oh, great. What happened now? Quinn Ewers announces that he will be skipping, forget senior skip day, skip the entire year, his senior year of high school down there at South Lake Carroll High School in Texas. And he'll be coming to Ohio State very, very soon to join the rest of the team in preseason camp. When you first heard the news that Quinn Ewers was leaving school to come to Ohio State, what kind of thoughts went through your mind?
Nice kid taking and rolling early to a whole new level, I think. I mean, my goodness. I love it for a couple of reasons. A, obviously, mega talented guy. You want all the talented players you can get at the most important position on the team. Bright future for that kid, obviously. I love it that we don't have to sweat it out for the next few months with every other team, grasping at straws, trying to get him to flip from Ohio State. Maybe Texas has a decent year with Steve Sarkisian, and all of a sudden that they cannot get their foot back in the door with him. Don't have to worry about that now. He's a Buckeye. That's all there is to it. The only thing that bothers me a little bit is the fan base, just a little bit, because man. I don't think I've ever seen a bigger hype train for an incoming recruit quite with the fan base, quite like Quinn Ewers, who is literally being called the greatest QB recruit of all time by many. And I don't know if I'd go that far. I think he's mega talented. I'm excited. I would have hated to have lost him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to downplay him at all, but let's simmer down just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I am a person that's been more vocal as far as how I view recruiting databases, recruiting rankings on the transitional period from high school. No matter if you play high-level high school football or you're at the bottom of the barrel in your state, going from high school football at any level to Ohio State to Clemson or just to the very next level, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And Quinn Ewers announcing he's going to not play football in high school, not have a chance to play for a state championship, to be at Ohio State. First thought that went to my mind is, okay, great. You're doing this. Move forward with it. You've made this decision. The Pete Thelma report that came out last week surely seemed like this is what you were going to be doing. But now you have to transform your mind, mature very, very quickly, because these guys don't care about you. This ain't like you're the big man on campus down there in Texas in high school. These guys don't care about you. And these other guys, McCord, Stroud, and Miller, all they've been hearing is this guy's going to take your spot. I'm going to remind Buckeye fans of something very, very quickly. Quinn Ewers has to lose his black stripe before he can have a chance to win the starting quarterback spot. So if you look at Ewers and say he's automatically going to be that guy, let's just stop really quickly. As Lee Corso says, not so fast, my friend. Let's remember, there are steps to this. He needs to learn the playbook. He needs to really needs to get under Mick Mariotti's strength and conditioning program because his body is not ready for college football. But the maturity process was the main thing for me that I'm trying to think about and say, how mature is he? He seems pretty mature. But mature for an 18-year-old in high school is different, Corey, for an 18-year-old that's at The Ohio State University.
Yeah, I think fans are going to have to realize one thing, okay? Whoever starts this year, and we believe it will be Stroud. I'm not counting out Miller or McCord. I just think it will be Stroud. And I know you feel the same way, Jay. And that's fine. I'm not even upset at who they pick, to be honest with you. They're all extremely talented. Let's say it's Stroud, though. Whoever it is going to be the starter next year, too. Yeah, because we know they're going to put up numbers in this day offense. They have weapons galore around them. And next year, they're going to, as they've been elite, they're going to have been a starter this entire year. They will step into that leadership role next year and be counted on. I'd say much like JT in 2016 when the team was really young around him, and they really needed that veteran quarterback. They want to have that veteran quarterback who's been under fire, and used his playbook and practicality in real time in the games. For the going into next year. I mean, the relationship between a head coach and his quarterback is extremely tight, especially if they're in the foxhole together and that quarterback's performing at a high level, which we believe Stroud will. These are not bums. These are not Joe Bowsermans. These are really talented players, borderline 5-star guys themselves in their own right. Elite 11 winners. I mean, I hate to say, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Stroud did something that Ewers didn't do. Won the Elite 11. And I'm not knocking Ewers for that. It's like, just calm down just a little bit. Well, you might have to get used to the fact that Ewers may only play 1 year. If he wins the job in 23, that may be it. That may be his only year, and we see him for 1 year, and then he goes pro. And he can make money off the NIL for the next 2 years while preparing, while getting ready, while getting developed by Ryan Day and Corey Dennis, and then get one massive blow-up year, and then he's the first pick in the draft.
Corey, something just crossed my mind, and I have said on this podcast that I believe that the proper path for Ewers is to redshirt this year. He's coming in super, super late. You're going to get into camp in the middle of it. The best thought process to me is redshirt. He can play up to 4 games and still redshirt, but I don't think he's going to come in, take over. Let's just say he's the third quarterback in the depth chart. You're not going to play 4 games. There's a good chance you're not playing those 4 games. So use this year as a redshirt. At the same time, McCord can use this year as a redshirt. I don't know if Miller and Stroud could use last year as a redshirt because of the whole COVID thing. I'm not sure the eligibility because I'm so confused on how that all works out. I know it says redshirt freshman for them, but is this truly like an extra year plus they get a redshirt year? I'm not sure how that's going to work out for them. But McCord could very easily, if what we think is going to happen with Stroud being named the quarterback, McCord could redshirt this year. And that kind of changes a lot of fans' thought processes. Corey Dennis and Ryan Day, Kevin Wilson, that's another year of McCord, who I believe has the best arm of any quarterback in the quarterback room. And for everybody saying, Ewers this, Ewers that, Ewers this, Ewers that, Kyle McCord's been there for a very long time, knows the offense. His body is more mature than it would have been if he just came in right now. And that kind of puts a crazy wrench, a crazy abnormal thought to the Ewers timetable about what many fans may say. If he redshirts or if he doesn't redshirt, he'll start here. Well, let's just say that him and Ewers are on the same track. I'm still going McCord over Ewers, that's crazy to think about, but I think McCord's that talented. If he redshirts this year, Corey, Ewers fans may say, whoa, buddy, we don't like how this is looking because our guy might not start as soon as we think.
Yeah, and that's the sad point is that let's just say Ewers is not able to beat out McCord in a couple of years, right? After Stroud has gone on to the NFL. And then everybody says, well, Ryan Day made a mistake because I've read some articles about Ewers and I've seen a couple highlight films and I've seen a couple 7-on-7 drills. So that means I know more than Ryan Day and Corey Dennis in the situation.
Right.
That's getting me a little frustrated. It's like, guys, when I see fans on Twitter, especially calling him the greatest quarterback prospect of all time, I'm like, how do you know that? Have you scouted quarterbacks the last 20 years? I think Vince Young was actually a perfect rating when he came out. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think Quinn Ewers is amazing. I love him, but I think McCord's amazing. I love him. And I honestly, when I watch McCord, he reminds me a little bit with his footwork and his arm motion, everything, a little bit like Tom Brady. I'm not saying he is Tom Brady, but he reminds me a little bit of that. He has really nice touch like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I don't want to be like he's on that level because he's not. That's just stupid to think that way. But that's who he's reminding me of. He has that maturity about him, that presence about him, about running the offense. And Stroud, what I loved about him, and I think this is just spring game, obviously, but how he reads and works the defense. He looks like a game manager plus right now, a game manager who can make plays, not just a guy who's like a prime Andy Dalton who's just a game manager. That's what he is. But they all look like NFL talents, and I think it's just so ridiculous to discount these guys. I'm not saying Ewers can't come in and be the starter. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying he can't come. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's highly unlikely. It's this year, very highly unlikely, extremely unlikely next year if Stroud is performing, barring injury and all that stuff. In 2023, he's got a battle, man. McCord's not going to just lay down for him.
No, he won't. And I think that's one of the best things I like about Ohio State and what Ryan Day is doing right now. You're bringing in guys that they know coming in, they have to compete. Mm-hmm. And if you can't compete in practice or in the weight room or in the film room, competing on the field, it's not going to happen. And I love the competition as a former competitor, football player myself, and different sports that I played growing up. I loved competing. It's something that's ingrained in me. I compete with myself on a regular basis. Corey, you see me on Twitter, all this running that I've been doing, trying to get, run like I used to do. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying my best, and I'm competing with myself. Now, some runs I know are not going to be the fastest. That's on purpose. Like I had a run this past weekend outside. It wasn't a treadmill before, lifting some weights. I purposefully did not try to beat my time. I was trying to work on pacing, not running the fastest time. But one thing about running outside it as an adult or running 5Ks or half marathons with other adults, you're competing with yourself, also with others. And I believe that Ryan Day knows what he's doing right now with the quarterback room, with the recruiting classes, having multiple QBs in the same class. So when to get to Ohio State, he can find, if you're going to enroll early, well, look, the other guy I brought in with you, you're here side by side with each other. So you're competing with yourself and with him. And that competition all summer long in the fall camp as well, I think it's going to breed so much success, Corey, for whoever wins the starting job, Stroud for me and you and a lot of people listening, McCord or Miller, whoever it is, it's going to show so much about them saying, look, the game, competing in practice, competing in the weight room, competing in the film room, trying to stretch my mind because I know the guy next to me is doing the same thing. It's going to make those game situations, Corey, a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing that's going to be concerning. I'd like to see how Ryan Day actually handles this is, when say Stroud's the starter, he's never thrown a collegiate pass. He's in there, maybe a couple incompletions in a row, maybe an interception, maybe just a bad, stupid throw. How does he handle that? Because he knows he's got uber talented guys right behind him that could come in and pick up the slack. So it's like it's not like Ohio State years past where Miller and that's it. It's just if he makes a mistake, you live with it because he's easily the best you got. Terrell Pryor, same thing. Whatever you got extremely massively talented guys who were chomping at the bit to take the job from you, and Can you handle it? Can you play loose? Can you let the mistake roll off your shoulders? Like, hey, that's all right. I messed up that one time. I'll get him next time. I'll look at the film and get him next time. And I think when you talk about competition, iron sharpens iron, like basically alluding to what you were talking about here. I think that the mental aspect of it it's really, the cream is going to rise to the top. It's going to show who can handle the pressure at Ohio State. What a brilliant way to show who can handle the pressure of being the Ohio State quarterback, is having to compete with these unbelievably talented guys who are all of them. And I'm sorry for those who disrespect Jack Miller. All of them, Jack Miller included, are NFL caliber quarterbacks.
They are. And I went through the quarterback competition recently. I was not trying to diminish Jack Miller, the third.
Of course, I know. I understand.
But I do think he's the third guy in the totem pole, third guy in the list. But that's not saying he can't be a starter down the road at Ohio State. That's
just saying how good the situation is at Ohio State.
It's amazing. It's so amazing. Back to yours, though. I'm curious, Cory, if we're going to hypothetically think we're a high school coach and you're losing your starting quarterback in August. I don't care if he's been talking about this for months, 3 or 4 months, if it goes back to 6 months. You're losing the guy that you had a feeling would be your starting quarterback this year in August, knowing the season starts in 2 weeks. You have to be a person that has to assist this young man in making the right decision. The head coach on Twitter, I didn't read the whole statement, glanced over it very quickly, but he did make a statement on Twitter about NIL, Quinn Ewers, and what Quinn Ewers is going through. How would you personally, and I'm going to give my comments in a minute, kind of try to assist somebody in this situation, knowing you may lose a guy that could help you win a state championship?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Jay. Johnny and I were talking about that a little bit. Like, how many months was this in the works to where his teammates blindsided by this? Where the coaches, I know the coaches couldn't have been blindsided by this; they had to be included in the process. But you're right. You're looking with Quinn Ewers to compete for a state title this year, and he up and leaves. Again, I don't know if it was abrupt or whatever, but I mean, as you're a coach and you care about the young man and you're talking to his parents. Kid has a chance to make almost seven figures or more in his freshman year in college because of new NIL rules. And Texas won't allow high school kids to make that kind of money. You have to say, look, I need you here, but I can't tell you to pass up, generational money that could really secure your future just because I want to win a state title. I mean, coaches get paid a decent amount, even in Texas, and high school coaches. I mean, I'm not saying they're getting paid like college coaches, but you get my point. And I understand their job is tied to how well these teams do. But if you really care about the kid, you got to say it could all be over tomorrow. It could, some injury could kill you tomorrow. I don't mean kill as in die. I'm just mean could kill your career tomorrow. Sorry, I didn't word that correctly. But and if you have a chance to go sit on the bench, not put wear and tear in your body, and develop and make $1 million, I can't tell you not to do it.
Yeah, man, you're in a tough spot. And I remember when I was in high school, and I know that if the starting quarterback was having this possibility, I would probably, if I was a player, I'd be a little upset. Not saying I wouldn't understand it, but I would be a little upset.
Yeah.
If I'm the head coach, I'm kind of in a weird situation because if I try to entice him, well, I'm trying to manipulate the situation for my own personal gain. And we have all seen the movies, heard the stories about high school football in the state of Texas. It's a little crazy, a little wild, gets a little bit intense. If you haven't seen the movie Friday Night Lights, I encourage you to go watch it because that just gives you a slight glimpse of how intense it is down there in the state of Texas for high school football. So if I'm the coach, I'm a little, I don't know. If I'm the parents, if I'm his dad, the mom, the story that Pete Thelma wrote, the family is not hurting for money. I get all of that. But I'm still in a weird situation because if I'm the coach, people could say that I'm trying to manipulate it, try to make sure that I get another ring on my belt, on my resume so I can go into the Hall of Fame. If I say, well, I understand, if I encourage him to go and not stay, then I have all these parents behind me that are still there that are saying, what are you doing? Like, what's the thought process? Players trying to ask you questions about who's going to be QB1 for us. So you're in a tough spot, and it sucks that it's happening now. NIL didn't go into effect until July 1st, and the NCAA was the one that said we're going to, well, due to the pressure from the government, from the Supreme Court really getting put on Front Street for their business model, really change things very quickly to make everything a level playing field and wouldn't have an unfair playing advantage. I think it's very idiotic of them to say that, because no matter what, Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, eventually, hopefully USC, they're always going to have that there's always going to be an unfair competitive advantage, better coaches, better facility. Well, facilities not so much because they have those all over the place. But there's so much that can happen now that Ohio State's going to have an unfair competitive advantage over schools like a Tulsa or an Akron or a Youngstown State because of the talent gap that is there between Ohio State and the other schools that I listed. So the coaching situation is different. It's interesting. How would you feel if you're a player at Ohio State, knowing that you're going to have a guy come in, 7-figure endorsement money that's coming in? Okay, cool. You're big man on campus down there. And I know how locker rooms can get. They can get a little tense, a little fun. There may be somebody there that's a 5th or 6th year player that's going to try to mess with the young man. As a player, Corey, this will be very, very fun. Not saying it's going to be a fight or two, but I'm going to be very, very curious to see what kind of stories come out of camp and practice about the Quinn Ewers situation.
It's going to put the culture and the brotherhood to test, that's for sure. Because you're right. You know, you not to mention you develop relationships with Jack Miller and C.J. Stroud as a player. Chris Olave, I think, came back in part because he believes in those guys. Kyle McCord, you've seen what he can do in spring. He did it the normal way. He early enrolled. He gives after his senior year. This kid's literally doing something unprecedented. He's literally coming in. He's skipping his senior year all entirely, and he's making $1 million. Right, he's going to be on the bench making $1 million or whatever he is because he's such a big time recruit. Man, I don't know. That's going to test a lot of things in that locker room. As a player, I'd probably be a little bit extra in my heart pulling for the other guys because it seems like he's not even the underdog, even though he's 18 coming on and not even playing his senior year, getting all this money and expected to be the future of the franchise, so to speak. And let's say you like CJ, you become good buddies with him. And you're like, man, I trust him. I think he can lead us to the promised land. Or Kyle McCord, yeah, that dude's the future. That dude's great. Or even Jack. I hate to leave him out because everybody's leaving him out. But it's like Jack. Maybe it's like, man, Jack's a great guy. You know what? He's got that it factor. I like him a lot. And all of a sudden, I'm like, who the heck is this guy? Some big time recruit. He ain't done nothing with us yet. So. Yeah, it's going to put the brotherhood to the test. And I think Ryan Day, again, another thing. Ryan Day, really, it's a good thing we have a new coach at this time because I think Ryan Day was made for this era, and he's handling it beautifully along with Mark Pantoni. And I just think Ryan Day was fighting for NIL rights. I mean, so he understands where we are in today's climate, and you can't be on the wrong side of history. And Ryan Day is planting his feet firmly on the right side of history here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I do believe that the change, even though it was one that was a little expected, but also unexpected, the health and everything going on with Urban. I'm glad that Day came in the year before he took over and understood and got to learn quickly the Ohio State brand, the Ohio State way, how the fan base is, how the coaches are, what the expectations are. You know about them, you hear about them from the outside, but it's a whole lot different once you're inside that the athletic department and you really feel how important the game against the team up north is and how you feel how important going to the Rose Bowl and winning that is, and that you feel how important not making the playoff is. You feel all that stuff, and then you get to say, well, I understand it. Let's make some slight tweaks and take this thing to another level. Last but not least, Corey, I want to lead off with my thoughts about this and then close out with you before we kind of wrap this show up. I've been thinking about this situation ever since the Pete Thelma report last week. If Quinn Ewers decides to leave early, is it a wise decision? If I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. If I am Quinn Ewers, myself personally, and I'm the starting quarterback, number one recruit, got perfect rating at one point, all of a sudden I can make $1 million in endorsement money, have equity in a company that people have not heard of, but that's going to be the same thing for a lot of these athletes with their endorsement money. Would I want to skip my senior year of high school, skip enrolling early, go to campus in August instead of January? Would I want to skip my senior year of football season, or would I want to go to Ohio State early and basically use this year as a redshirt year to solidify some money that I could possibly get, that I'll probably get in January? I personally, if I'm advising somebody, if I'm in his shoes, I would probably want to stay in high school. I think it's wise to stay in high school. If I'm him, I want the money too, but if I'm an advisor, I probably would say stay in school. If I'm just myself as a podcast host, I'm saying stay in school. The money's going to be there. The money's going to be there for you. You're going to kill it, probably kill it this year at South Lake Carroll High School. Probably going to win a state championship. You're going to have a lot of fun with your team. And you're going to have a lot of memories you'll have for a lifetime. And they will last for a very, very long time. I understand if I'm the player, the pull to make the money. But if I'm advising him, I'm saying stay. If I'm the podcast host, myself, the analyst, I'm saying stay. If I'm Ewers, I completely understand why he's doing it, and I would probably be leaning more towards the money, especially with today's climate where the power of the dollar is navigating and controlling so many movements that people are making. I would probably want to go there as well. But if I'm the advisor or the host or the analyst, I'm saying stay in school, young man, because I think it's wise for you to stay in school. Corey, you're the player, the podcast host, and then also if you're the advisor, that's neither one of the two hats. What kind of thought or what decision would you make?
I tell him you got to go.
Yeah.
Not because you can get started on your degree early, and graduate early. I'd say go but with a focus on the fact you have to graduate and get a good education on top of your football, because they never know if football is going to work out or not. I just think if you're getting close to $1 million, it's just, that's just money he can use to retire off of.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm 37 years old. I own a little business. I would have loved that opportunity when I was 18 to be able to make that kind of money, generational type money, and get set up with the best coaches in the country, with a great education at Ohio State. Yes, I agree with you, the memories of senior year, but I think based on my memories of my senior year, I would trade that to go to Ohio State in a second. So
I understand.
I think that's where I'm at right now. I think he's doing the right thing for himself. Not that it matters what I think, but it's just, I just think you can't in today's world, man. I agree with you. The money should be there for him, but you just never know what tomorrow holds, and you just got to go grab it while you can, because I think in a few years' time, if he can't play football anymore, at least he's got a good education at Ohio State at a young age and gets started on his career early, and he's got that NIL money put away. So.
That is true. Cory Thompson. We would go a whole lot longer if we could, but we're out of time. If you could let everybody know where they can connect with you on Twitter, and then also where they can catch your show as well.
On YouTube, Ohio State Football with Scarlet N Great, and on Twitter at Scarlet Great CT. My partner in crime at Scarlet Great JL is Johnny, if you want to check him out as well.
And guys, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. As always, I personally have a big week this week. My brother's getting married in a couple days and a few days on Friday. But that does not mean the podcast is going to stop. Had a bonus episode on Sunday, going to go all the week strong. Preseason camp, Quinn Ewers. Going to try to get a guest next week to talk some more Quinn Ewers stuff, because this is such a big story. There are so many different storylines we can pull on, talk about, and trust me, we're going to talk about some of those very, very soon. Have a great day, guys.